Blessings in Jesus' name. So in this video, again, I'm going to be exposing demonic tactic, the devil's tactics. And what I'm going to be exposing is the nature of their attack and the devices, how they're designed, what they're designed to do, what they sound like, how they're implemented. So what the enemy does is he says the opposite of what's happening. These are called cancelling effects. So for example, if you're about to hit me, if you're loading up to hit me, it's better that I stop the momentum of the blow building up, because by the time I contact it, I want to make sure that it doesn't have momentum. If the blow has momentum, when I block it, it will be to me more like a strike. So I'm the one trying to block the strike. But because it's gained momentum, even though I might be parrying to deflect the shot, it's still going to have more momentum than if I stop the shot before it builds up or gains momentum. So the recruiting of muscle, you know, all that kind of stuff, once it gets into a certain posture and there's some momentum, it's harder to stop. So sometimes it is better to deflect. But if you can stop it before the momentum builds up, you've got more control. Now it's sort of cancelling. You're cancelling out the shot. A block is designed also to cancel out the shot. But what the enemy tries to do is he tries to prevent you building up momentum. He's trying to keep you flat-footed. He doesn't want you to have some pace and some speed and some momentum. And so the design is a sort of a siphoning effect. It's designed to sort of let the air out of your tires, spiritually speaking. And so that you don't have as much, firmness, as much traction, and as much grip and speed. So when you think about that, how is that implemented then in speech? Well, if a demon, identical, because they're cosmic entities, they're hooked up to spiritual things, they can read the situation. If they're aware that you're starting to gain momentum, they want to know why you're gaining momentum. Once they identify why you're gaining momentum in your spirit, they will state the opposite of why you're gaining momentum. So for example, because they're in the fight and they're basically chest-banging morons, I'm bigger than you, right? Once you've established that, their implementations, no matter how much intelligence you put on, I'm bigger than you, no matter how intelligent you make that, that's still the principal drive. Now, if two bigger than yous meet, you have a fight, right? But if a bigger than you wants to make you into a bigger than you, then they have to expose that there is the bigger than you in you. So the takes one to know one comes into that. But at the same time, they're trying to change people by frustrating them. They're trying to expose a need in them to dominate, a need in them to be in control, a desire in them to be the boss and to be the one that's calling the shots. And even though there can be both leaders and followers in humanity, and that's necessary, we need kings and we need... This is different. It's an animalistic and beastly need for dominance. And sort of self-assertion, So when you're gaining momentum, because these 354 FUMs are intelligent, because they've become cosmic entities, there's a level of intelligence there and a power. So they're able to assess you. And basically what they are is energy pirates, seafaring Vikings and pirates that want to rape, pillage, maraud, steal and hijack. That's all they've got. That's their drive. That's mine. That's ours. It's really that pathetic. The weak and beggarly elements. Now what they do, in effect, because they've become intelligent, is they have identified the mechanisms by and through which to do those seafaring, hijacking, pirate tactics on a spiritual level. So it looks like you're gaining momentum in the spirit, and the reason you're gaining momentum they've identified. Or there might be just common reasons why men gain momentum in the spirit, or women, and feel sort of like they're getting a bit of wind in their sails, or wind under their wings, and they're starting to get a bit of height and ascension spiritually, and their energy is improving and such. That's when a demon shows up. Whenever you're starting to gain momentum and there's light and things are going good for you, it's totally opposed to what Satan has in mind for you. And his demons, little franchisees of his initial drive, still kill and destroy, want to do the same thing. So as soon as they identify you have something of true value, not just gold, but something of true value, some spiritual beauty or goodness, or something that you have in your heart that's actually good to have in your heart, they'll want to destroy it, to steal it, to kill it. That is what they are in the universe to do. They are roaring shitheads. There's nothing good in their heads to do, because they are basically chaos personified. So when you think that there's a spiritual monster, a pirate, a Viking of sorts, a spiritual siphon, a sea monster, a pirate and a marauder of the sea, you can then identify, how is this person killing what it is that's giving me my momentum? And if you don't know, if you're not aware, they will do. And I don't say, by the way, to back up a minute, I don't say shitheads lightly. I'm talking about shit as in, not like the poo or the excrement that comes out of a human being that can go back into the soil and nourish the roots of a tree. No. I'm talking about toxic waste that will be exited from the universe of God. Something that cannot ever be integrated into the body, and so must be rejected and ejected from the universe. So a spiritual cancelling effect or siphoning effect is designed to steal spiritual momentum from you. Hi Cobus, blessings. This message is about your enemy, the devil, the demons that serve him, and even witches and wizards around you. It is, if you imagine yourself at sea, and you're getting some wind, you're gaining some wind in your sails, and you're on your vessel, and you're at the helm, you're steering well, and you're travelling well, and you've got some goods of value on board, and you're a good spiritual vessel, self-contained, obedient, and so you have gained much wealth. Spiritually speaking, these are metaphorical. Then the enemy, the devil, wants to come and hijack your ship and wreck it and take the helm of it and steer it onto the rocks and destroy it. The devil is not the sort of thief that wants to take all the goods off your boat and put them in a cave somewhere. He just wants to get them off your boat. He just wants to wreck you. So as soon as there's some momentum in your life, something good, something that you're enjoying, then what the devil wants to do is he wants to cancel that. So oftentimes, because they can't cancel it and the devil can only speak lies, what they do is they speak the opposite of what is occurring. So for example, a demon will say something like, when they've identified that you've increased in spiritual strength and their devices aren't working anymore, the demon will say something like, I am strong. How strong am I? So the demon is bigging itself up. But the reason it's doing that is because it has identified that you have become strong. So any way that a pathetic little parasite can get some of your energy, it has to create the siphon device. And it's just like a little, sort of valve that it sticks into the bottom of your ship to drain out the fuel. It's called a cancelling effect, taking the wind out of your sails. If you have momentum and, you go into somebody and you'll say, oh, I can play a new song. Look, what do you think? Yeah, it's good. Yes, all right. Yeah, well done. But the expression says, I don't care. The words are saying something that you couldn't criticize. Like, what's been articulated actually sounds like it's supportive and encouraging, but the face and the tone and everything else, all the body language, said, go away, I don't care about your song. You see, if it just said, I don't care about your music, you'd shut down, and those people would no longer have access to your heart to hurt you in this manner. So what they want to do is keep the streams of your heart open to them so they can continue to try and poison it and embitter you and cause you to be resentful. By treating you as Cinderella, abusing you. And so, the old saying, the spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. Oftentimes the sugar is the word, but the tone and the body language and the lethargic, slow movement is what is the siphoning effect. It's the toxin inserted. It's the toxic vaccine, because the sugar there has to be something in the message, in the communication, that has an appearance of righteousness. It has to have some form of a Trojan horse device. It has to appear as something that you can and should welcome into you. But like the Trojan horse, the story of Troy where the Trojan horse was given as a gift, but it was full of soldiers that were going to destroy the castle. They just wanted to get past the impenetrable gate, at least impenetrable to their weaponry. And so they had to find a way of getting past that gate. So they had an idea, let's build a giant horse and we'll all climb into it and we'll say it's a gift. And once we get past the wall, they won't expect the attack. We'll have the element of surprise. And so the Trojan horse served as something that was welcomed into the castle. It was welcomed in behind the walls. And then the element of surprise was the injury, it was the attack. So that's how the devil works. The devil won't just say, you are nobody, you're a waster. Somebody might try that, but it won't be just that. Because what tends to happen there is somebody shuts down. The Motte and Bailey castle, the drawbridge is lifted, everything shuts down, and the arrows are at the defences, and nobody's getting in. Because your heart is now guarded, because somebody attempted to injure it. And Jesus said, guard your heart, for out of it flow the streams of life. So the devil tries to penetrate your Motte and Bailey castle. He tries to get past the wall, past the archers, and have the element of surprise. And so his designs are his sorceries. The devil will deceive the whole world by his sorceries, Jesus said. And sorceries are manifold. They can be of the mouth. They can be of chemicals. They can be of many different, forms. And they can be spiritual. They can be physical, And so the spoken is the spiritual, and the implemented is the physical, like the poison, the medicine, the toxin. Whereas the voice, somebody would say, this is good for you, and it's sweet to the taste, and the child takes the medicine, whatever it is, might be penicillin or something, and it completely knocks off all their own, abilities to defend themselves. It switches off their immune responses. And so you think it's fixing them, but all it's doing is switching off their immune reaction. So, in many ways, switching off the immune reaction is to drop your defenses. And that's what the devil wants you to do. He wants you to drop your defenses. He's using all these different sorcery tactics to make the hearts of men vulnerable to his spoonful of toxins with a little bit of sugar. You know, a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. And these are Trojan horse devices. Okay. So, how are these actually implemented? So they're implemented, as I said, by stating the opposite of what's occurring. Because they don't want you to gain momentum or identify your strengths. And if they can keep your strengths away from you, if they can even, hide from you your capacities or your abilities or the extent of your gifts that God has given you, they can even arrest your development unto the complete destruction of the development of your gifts so that you have no livelihood. They will try to steal everything from you because they don't just stop when they've stolen one thing. They see that as an encouragement to steal more. They're looking to steal your everlasting soul and laugh at you while it burns in hell. So, blessings, Cobus. So that's what we're up against today. And what you've got to understand is that the basic mechanism doesn't change. It's just implemented in different fields or different aspects or factors of your being, or, organs of society, infrastructures, politics. But the implementations are the same. Media, music, arts. Any form of communication has the potential to be a sorcery. Whether it's communicating a chemical compound to the body, physical body, or communicating a compound statement to the brain. You're going to affect in some way the makeup of that thing. Jesus said you have the power of life or death in the tongue. So the world knows this. Satan knows this. He teaches his wizards certain things so that they can avoid the seafaring Vikings, the energy pirates, the vampires of spirit, while they're on the sea serving the devil. So what Satan's men do is they dress up as the navy vessel, but they're just well-educated Vikings themselves, who've been trained to avoid the calamity of the demons. So Satan puts his men out there and he gives them certain protection by giving them certain knowledge so that they can go out. So they're basically a pirate vessel masquerading as the navy vessel. That's what Freemasonry is. That's what the Illuminati is. The pirates basically got an education and put on a suit. But it was done back to front. Society was built. Once they showed aptitude and went through the systems of learning in the institutes, once they showed aptitude, Satan would headhunt them to recruit them to his organs of his government, because Satan is the god of the world. So there's a mix of power, not a sharing of power, but a mix of power. Satan has remit over his kingdom, but God has remit over all that exists. Now, I've seen it. It can be something as simple as a breath. Like, I learned when I was singing and just by watching videos and stuff, that mouth breathing has the potential to cause all sorts of problems in our chemistry, in our cellular chemistry. From sleep apnea to the reduction of IQ. Even your IQ can be affected by breathing through your mouth, which is interesting because our film depictions of the slack-jawed yokel, the local guy that wasn't blessed with great intelligence, kind of always has his mouth open. So you wonder why. So the best thing to do is train yourself to breathe through your nose. But while I was looking at these things, I realized that there are different ways to sigh. There are different ways to exhale, which have a different physiological effect on your body. And when you do that, if you get to do that habitually, what actually ends up happening is your body is not as alive as it should be. You're basically in a sort of lesser form of suffocation, because respiration is far more complicated than we've been taught to understand. You know, there's the microbiome of the sinus, the hairs of the nose to filter out bacteria when you breathe, mucus, you know, there's literally a complete system in your nose. And if you don't use it, so you're not aerating it, it can become stagnant, it can get infected, it can just not function well, and so forth. So if you learn to breathe through your mouth, you're creating all sorts of problems in your anatomy. You're creating adrenal function, because when you breathe through your mouth, you release adrenaline. So you can become addicted to your own adrenaline, and you can start breathing, sort of chest breathing instead of stomach breathing. So when I was being taught by this singing expert, he said, breathe in, stomach out. So what he was saying was, simultaneous with inhaling through your nose, push out your stomach. Why? Because your lungs expand downwards, not outwards. Now most people would think, your lungs expand into your chest, don't they? No, actually they don't. That's not how the diaphragm works. They shouldn't. There is a little bit of wiggle room in your chest, but most of the expansion capability or capacity is downwards. And so when you put your stomach out, it displaces your internal organs to make way for your lungs to come down. See the mechanism? So what the diaphragm actually does, it's like a bag opening device. The effort in breathing is exhaling, because the diaphragm pushes the air out of your lungs. How else would it get out of there? It has to be pumped out. So once you learn that mechanism, you learn to breathe. But the point I wanted to make was, there are two ways to sigh. You can sigh through your nose, or you can sigh through your mouth. I want you to do this for a second. Protect your energy. But do it. Exhale through your nose, and you'll find that it relaxes you. Do it. Now exhale through your mouth, and you'll find that it has a way of draining your energy. Try it. And please put in the comments if you felt the difference. And then reset by exhaling through your nose. Relax yourself again. You'll find exhaling through your nose keeps you in a state of balance. Now, demons have a greater dispensation of knowledge about the anatomy, the workings of the human body. You felt it, Cobus. You felt it. You see, we're going through a spiritual fight. We're fighting entities that have more knowledge about our physiology than we do. We've lost a lot of knowledge, and this is Satan's advantage. All they have to do is keep the knowledge from us that would otherwise protect us from their devices. Much lighter through the nose, yeah. And try to, you're not forcing your stomach out or something. You're not pushing, like, glottal attack with, like, as if you were going to the loo and you were constipated. Not like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just letting your stomach go out. Just letting it go out of the way of your lungs when you're expanding, when you're breathing in. And you'll find over time that you actually don't need as much oxygen as you thought you did once you're breathing through your nose. And you start to breathe a little bit more shallower because you don't need so much oxygen. Once cellular chemistry is balanced, you're just sort of maintaining then. Now, if you were to run down the road as fast as you could, then you would breathe through your mouth. But if you were to walk fast down the road, you could breathe through your nose. So, a bit of knowledge. But the main point I'm making there is that, much similar to yawning, if somebody is to yawn in your environment, it might trigger a yawn in you. I think it might be something to do with, we identify that there's some kind of environmental condition that requires us to respond in the same way that the person next to us did. Because generally speaking, a yawn is induced by a lack of oxygen. So that would make sense, wouldn't it? If there's a lack of oxygen in our environment, maybe I need to yawn as well. We're beautifully designed for our environment, and socially as well, which is interesting. Because remember, we're social creatures, so that we can experience things together. God didn't put us here to have our own isolated experience. He put us here to have an experience together. So, it doesn't just happen with yawning. It also happens if somebody exhales through their mouth beside you. It has an energy siphoning effect. It's quite amazing. It's like the air going out of a tire. It's like somebody's letting the airs out of your spiritual tires. It's like somebody's stealing the wind out of your sails. It's a deflation. They're deflating you. Now, at the moment, demons are causing me to grind my teeth at night. Look how much tooth I've lost. This one is particularly sensitive. It's quite near the root now. It's getting bad, like. It's so evil to make a man grind his teeth away at night while he's sleeping. It's vile. Like, what they're actually doing, to me, is stuff that goes beyond just energy manipulation. They're actually physically interfering with me now. Because they have no other way of doing it. They're totally defeated. They don't know what to do with me. So that's when they start getting physical. So this costs them more and more. But God will deal with them. And I don't care if I lose all my teeth and have dentures. I don't care. I'll serve God. But it's evil. Very evil stuff. Like, it just goes to show their nature. They'll stop at nothing because they're chest banging goat demons. They're just headbangers. They'll just run at a wall out of temper. They're just made out of chaos. So I've got myself a mouth guard to try and protect my teeth, but they're very weak at this point. They could crack at any point. So the point I'm making is that if somebody in your environment has a higher knowledge, dispensation of knowledge, than you do about the cowardice night crawlers, yeah. It's terrible, isn't it? So the point I'm making is that somebody in your environment who has better knowledge about your physiology than you do is obviously in a position to hold your reins, so to speak. They know how to manipulate you. And that's what demons give to wizards, men who serve the devil. They give them these knowledges. They bring them up so that they'll have knowledge, they'll have a relative advantage over you in these dispensations of knowledge of anatomy. That even if you were to study science of modern day in an institution, you wouldn't be told. If you were to study biology, you wouldn't necessarily be told that kind of stuff. So the devil gives his demons these sorts of advantages over you. Melody Fourie. What's that? Are you sending me somebody's name to investigate? By the way, if you have acid reflux, peel apples and eat them. Or you just tiger. Acid reflux, eat apples. Works. They worked. So, if you can do that, if you can be consciously aware that, oh, I'm not actually sure, I don't know. I don't know what it is that helps, but they do work. From my own personal experience. So if the mechanism is known, if the physiological mechanism is known, whereby somebody in your environment has a higher dispensation of knowledge about your physiology, they can manipulate you. And so we have to catch ourselves. We have to say, well, you know, something's not right in the energy, what's happening, you know. And sometimes you can hear it in somebody's voice where they are spiritually. Maybe there's a bit of a hiss, a whisper in their voice. There's a looseness there when they're talking. And it's like their energy is constantly being siphoned away from them. So they're constantly sighing through their mouth, just at a slower rate. So if you're in their environment, if you're there in their company, it's going to have a really sort of leaking effect on you. A leaching, parasitic, siphoning effect. And so there are ways that you can teach yourself to breathe, speak, be, knowledges that are there to protect you. And oftentimes, all of these things, which the devil knows that you don't potentially, and he uses against you and people in your environment, can be corrected by fasting. And that's what Jesus told us to do. He told us to fast and pray. Fasting has so many different physiological benefits to the youthening of the human being and the reparation of the physical body, that if you were to fast consistently for 7 years, you could be relatively physiologically younger than you were 7 years previously, because of the ability for fasting to increase reparatory function and detoxification function within the body. Catabolism, autophagy, ketosis, detoxification acceleration, human growth hormone increase, stem cell production increase, etc., etc., etc. All multiplied hugely. Human growth hormone 40 times or 4,000% greater when fasting long term. 40 times more human growth hormone detected from fasting, just drinking water long term. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 days, up to 30 days. Jesus did it for 40 days. He was our example. I'd like to do 40 days one time. I've done 14 days, but I'd like to do 40. And so fasting does have the ability to repair you. It is possible that it might even help with my teeth through detoxification, removal of mucoid plaques and mucus build-up and all that kind of stuff. It does have the ability to help us repair and detox, but it's not a miracle cure either. But there are a lot of benefits to fasting. So the point is that you have to kind of catch yourself, because when you're under intense spiritual attack, you can find that your tendency is to go into the fight or flight mode and into that state, because you're going around, you're getting it from left, right and centre, you're getting it from all angles. But God is testing your mettle. God is proving you. So there has to be an intensity, and sometimes an increased level of adversity leads you back to what you already know, so that you actually implement it. You see, sometimes our strength works against us, because for our strength we don't have good form. For our strength we don't use the body correctly, because if I'm really strong I can take something with one hand, but the proper form is to take it with two. You know what I'm saying? It's to bend your knees and lift it up properly. But if I'm really strong, I mightn't bother to bend my knees. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel strong enough to do the thing within proper form. So sometimes our strength can work against us. And then when demons, because they're a lot stronger than us, are allowed to intensify the attack, that can lead us back to proper form. So God can discipline us in that manner, where he'll lead us back. He can say, you're gone a bit off the ball here. You need to get back on course. You know better than this. You know what I mean? And he can allow your enemy to attack you a bit stronger, with more intensity, higher frequency, more often and harder, so that it sets you a bit. You go, oh, okay. Because if you're very strong, you can kind of lean on your strength a bit. And God won't have that. He wants you leaning on him, because your enemy's a lot stronger than you. So it wouldn't be good for you if you were going around thinking you were strong enough in your own right. You're not. The Bible tells us that Jesus is the strength of Israel. So God is always trying to get you to be a good servant and a good child and submit to him as your Father. Knowing, because God could give you enough strength to stand on the earth and have nobody stronger than you, if he wanted to. That's not the exercise. Heaven is entered through difficulty. And I can see why that is. I know why that is in my heart. At least partially. Because Jesus said, what you think you know not yet, as you should. Because these things are multifaceted. It's like when you drop a pebble in the water, the ripples go in all directions. Who are we as little humans to be arrogant enough to think that we know all the directions that the ripple flows in? Because spiritually speaking, the water is not just one surface, it's every direction. It's like the water, instead of having a flat surface, has a spherical, three-dimensional surface. And you drop it into it, and then it goes in every single direction, not just along the surface of the water, but in every direction into the water. And you know what I mean? So it's going in every direction, three-dimensionally. You know what I'm saying? Like in a three-dimensional. I don't have the terminology. You can't say plane, because I think plane implies a flat surface or face. But more spherically, more three-dimensionally, even four-dimensionally, which goes beyond human capacity to really understand. So the point I'm making is that there are so many far-reaching implications and ramifications for our actions that we really can't comprehend them. So God is saying, what you think you know not yet, as you should. Don't be arrogant. Don't lie to yourself, God is saying, and think you know something completely when you don't. And don't see yourself as wise, because to see yourself as wise is to sort of exalt yourself in a way that's pretentious, because our wisdom comes from God. And sure, as men, we can forget stuff. Well, what was that wise saying again? You know what I mean? So it's just silly for us to say, I'm wise, Stephen the wise. That's pretentious. Jesus is wise. He is wisdom. So we get our wisdom from him. Jesus said, if boasting, boast in Christ. So these energy things, these stops and starts, these leads and retrofits, these are all spiritual mechanisms which are designed to slow you. Now, there are many ways to slow a vessel in the sea. Remove the wind, lower the sails. Jesus is wisdom, amen. Lower the sails, anchor the ship, tie a ship to your vessel and slow it down. Now, if I have a ship, I remember there was a computer game I played years ago, and it was all about hijacking other ships at sea. So I got a real insight, and you had to do it over and over and over again to complete the game. So I got a real insight into how that mechanism works. And what they would do is the pirate ship would approach another vessel. That vessel mightn't have the crew on board. They might be underneath sleeping or something. You'd approach them at night and you'd see Z's, you know. And the idea was, we're going to hijack this ship. So what you did was you'd come close to the ship and you'd throw ropes to the ship and you'd tie yourself to that ship, or hooks or anchors or whatever it was, whatever's available. And the idea was to slow the ship down with the weight of your vessel. It's like that child that's following you around, hanging out with your clothes. But mommy, daddy, you know. The child might be just tired wanting to be lifted up, but it has a terribly draining effect on the mother, to the point where she's just, will you stop hanging out of me, you know. And that's what the devil wants. He wants you to blow your top. So, and it is that low and pathetic and petty. That's why they're called the weak and beggarly elements, the base elements. They're pathetic. So their tactics are pathetic. So when they throw these ropes, they're designed to take the energy out of you, but they're timed. It's not mindless. These are intelligent entities. Their patheticness is not because of a lack of intelligence. It's because of a spiritual law that rules them. Chaos. So the point is that if they throw enough ropes, they can slow your boat. They can slow your vessel. And the idea is that they've slowed you down enough to hop on board your vessel, commandeer it, usurp it, and hijack it. So it's like the person whose sentence always begins just before yours finishes. They're not allowing your plane to come in for landing. They're not receiving your message. They're not allowing it to land. They're not giving it time to echo in the caverns of communication and understanding. I said something. And it's sort of the devil's phony principle. You can never say anything. You can never get anything. You don't contribute anything. And he's trying to weigh on you in this way. You see, he falsely represents God in the whole thing. Like God is this overlord, too controlling, and you know, all that. And that's not the case at all. So these principles, philosophies, or at least the potential for them to be later stated, are built into the devices and mechanisms, because that's just the nature of chaos. It's the only footing that the devil has, is to oppose God. Because everything stems from God, and so any opposition would have to be directly antithetical to it. So the devil exploits grace, and he uses the whole access to men under grace to present things that are somewhat accommodating what it is God would have you do. But there's some kind of corrupting factor, and that's the game he plays now in the dispensation of grace. There's a corrupting factor. It's like, remember the toxin in the medicine? There's something poisonous in there that makes what would be otherwise relatively, at least, harmless to your body, if not without any beneficial effects, rather harmful to your body by its addition to the recipe. So now, praise Jesus for his wisdom and the power of speech. Now what the devil is doing is he's projecting a form of godliness. The Bible says they have a form of godliness but denying the head. And the reason for this is so they can get right up close to your vessel. And that's what the black and white squares are all about in Freemasonry. It's the black ship beside the white ship trying to hijack it. So the spiritual remit comes into play. So if you're speaking in a way that is emphasizing or somewhat animated, percussive, the intonation has a little bit of peak and valley and has a little bit of energy, the devil will come alongside and make an accusation by tone, an accusatory tone. So how does this manifest in the environment around you every day and on a daily basis? Very easily. So you're walking down the road and you say, I don't like when the sun blinds my eyes. Somebody else could accentuate what you just said and take its meaning out of context. I don't like when the sun is in my eyes. Now that would be what you said out of context. So that's another device. That's where the accusation comes. Taking what you said out of context and accusing you on the basis of having taken it out of context. Now, they don't take it out of context accidentally. It's not a mistake. It's not their wrong interpretation. It's a deliberate misrepresentation of what you said, which is the accusation. Now, I don't have to even talk to you to do this, to make that accusation. I just have to be in your environment. For example, your child says, Mommy, I want to go into the shop and get a lollipop. And you say, not now, Mary. And somebody going by goes, it's a sunny day now, isn't it? They were talking about something completely different, but the accusatory tone was inserted. That was the devil's accusation. It manifested in somebody completely unrelated. They may not have even heard your conversation with Mary, your daughter, but they still made the accusation. Why? The devil is the spirit operating in the children of disobedience. You've just found a child of disobedience. The devil can't operate in anybody but the children of disobedience. But he can influence people as well. So we have to be careful, and this is why we should judge nothing before the time, not least of all because it's God's position to judge. So there are many different dynamics, and the devil is always trying to lead you to doubt or self-condemnation on the basis of maybe you haven't done exactly what it is that God would have you do in that scenario. So that's how the devil attacks faith. He attacks faith by leading you to believe that you've done something that God is not happy with, that might be the thing that is your loss of salvation or your destruction or God condemning you. But that would go against the word of God, and that's why the Bible says, take captive every thought. Not most of them. Take captive every thought that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and bring it into submission to the word of God. Now, just as I was finishing my sentence there, somebody went by and spoke uncharacteristically fast. It wasn't human, it was demonic. They just went past the window. They went, let it. Who talks like that? But it was like a do yo 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 yo, you know, like a doorstop. You hit the doorstop. Do yo 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 yo. It was just an interference. It was an attempted interference with my energy and my flow. Because energy flows and it twirls and it intertwines and it keeps moving forward. And so they come along and they bombard you. They go do yo 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 yo. It's just something to take your focus off what you were saying. Just to discombobulate you. It's like a clown's nose. Just anything. Spanner in the works. These are just energy disruptions. Spiritual bombardments. And when you learn to master your energy, Jesus said, be ye self-controlled. They have to be very, very careful what they do and how they escalate their attack. Because you belong to Jesus Christ. And they don't want any of that fight. So they'll try and make you feel uncomfortable. They'll try and interfere with your speech. Just now when I said uncomfortable, there was a little bit of a quiver in my voice. That was demonic interference. When I went, make you uncomfortable, there was a little bit of that in it. Did you hear that? That was demonic interference. And right now there's a demon holding a muscle in my throat just here. Well, it's not letting it go. It's contracting it. It's overstepping its mark, and it knows it is. It knows it is. Because they're so invested, they're so desperate to keep a worm and a hook and a thorn in your mind, that they're involved and in control of your energy. They're desperate because that's the only way that they can interfere with your energy and your person and your being. Now there are rafter bats, like the thorn in the flesh that was sent to buffet Paul, that Paul asked God to remove. Tormenting spirits, the tormentors. Well, God allowed the demon. God allowed the demon. Yep, God just did that and the demon released the muscle. Has to. So, God allowed the demon to buffet Paul. Do you hear my voice is more open now? Because the demon let go of my voice. Can you hear that? Isn't it much more open? So, the point I'm making is, now it's closed up a little bit more again because it's holding on again. So the rafter bat is the one that sits over you, constantly babbling. Just a constant demonic beast. Like a bat. You know that song, there's like a bat out of hell, I'll be gone when the morning comes. So that's like all this, transport, travel at night, that, what do they call it? Sometimes demons interfere with your thought processes and try to take a thought away from you. But eventually they have to give it back to you, and because God will command them to. Astral projection, they had to give it back. Astral projection. So astral projection is like travel. It's like projecting yourself to another location. And I suppose it's what demons facilitate men to do. In the name of Jesus, I rebuke the current attacks against you. Amen. And let the Lord Jesus Christ, the righteous, rebuke the demons from the environment. You see, God will allow demons to stay against some of us because we're so strong that God doesn't want us to become conceited. And also, God can increase your eternal reward by allowing the demons to continue to attack you. Do you remember there's a story in the Bible that says Christians were being tormented, they were being killed, and eventually what happened as a result of that was more and more people were coming to the faith and queuing up to be killed. To the point where the king just said, release them, because it was having the adverse effect, the opposite effect. Instead of dissuading and deterring people from becoming Christian, it was encouraging them to become Christian, because they were thinking, well, these people aren't willing to die for nothing, they must know something. And so it had an accelerating effect instead of a deterring effect. It didn't act like a deterrent at all. And so to the point where the Christians actually said, you're not releasing us. They were refusing release so that they could inherit a better eternity for dying for the name of Christ. And that goes on the whole time. I'll be out in the street singing, and they'll interfere with my voice, and they'll contract my neck. They'll just contract it like that while I'm in the middle of singing. Just enough to drive a man mad. I'll be singing. I've done it for months now. I've been singing for a year. And they've been doing it every time I go out busking, interfering with my voice. Every time. So that was just an example of a retrofit there. When I just said, they're doing it every time I went out there interfering with my voice. The demon went, because it identified a low note in the sentence, interfered with the. So they detected a lower tone, which might be something that sounds like depression or sadness, or just a wearing effect, like this has been wearing on me, They've been doing it. The demon will retrofit. It's like one of the hooks he'll throw. So he'll go and latch on to that thing. He won't let it go. It's too juicy. So he'll go, and so that's the retrofit. So there's like see when I went retrofit like that, you can hear like little step adjustments and things, like movements, adjustments, so a noise, something, a car horn, anything. It can be anything. But they'll communicate to your spiritual mind, this was intended as this. So that's the device. The device is go before, be the first to speak before they finish their sentence. At every point where traction points are, where places of progress, junctures are seen or identified in the spiritual realm or in energy production and movement, the demon will speak. Because human beings have the ability to accelerate one another. And what are demons but death? They're decomposition. Death is decomposition of the body. And that happens by decay, corruption, and division. So wherever there's a human social cog that increases the momentum one to the other socially, spiritually, energetically, the demon will get into the mix there. Did you hear my voice go? "Ugh," because they contracted my neck again, which was hidden by my hands at the time when they contracted it. They're terrible bastards, like. So, and then a demon going by just did a real crying sound, like, "Wee," because I was saying they did something to me. They did something to me, but it wasn't like that. It was subtly communicated, because it needn't be. I'm telling on you. You see what I'm saying? So the devil is subtle, because they can communicate to your spiritual mind what they don't need to communicate fully to your physical environment, but they don't miss the opportunity to manifest what they've communicated to your mind in the environment around you. And this is how they can make you feel very isolated, like the walls are closing in on you. And when people historically would say, "Oh, I'm hearing voices. I'm hearing voices." And, you know, they would say things like that. I'm hearing voices, or they're all out to get me. These people were identifying spiritual attack, but didn't know that's what it was. They were identifying demons attacking them, but didn't know that's who was attacking them. They were noticing the things that the Bible talks about in terms of demonic torment and attack, buffeting, the tormentors, but weren't able to pinpoint it and didn't know what it was. So they would listen to what society was saying about these things symptomatically, and they would self-diagnose, paranoid, schizophrenic, personality disorder. And so they might be hospitalized or, put into a madhouse because the demons were trying to hide themselves. And like you're saying, they really don't want this message to come out. They really don't. Of course they don't. Because it exposes them and their devices. It exposes them and their mechanisms, how they attack mankind. They hate me. They hate Christians, especially us vocal ones, with the ability to articulate complex points rather simply. Because it just lays them bare. They're just standing there naked. They've been totally exposed. They're deadbeats. And they're petty, pathetic murderers. Just like the devil. So we should, at every opportunity and consistently and frequently, put messages like this out. Absolutely we should. And continue to. Not just once, because you don't know who's watching, you don't know who's listening. Maybe just repost the same message over and over again, you know what I mean? And make sure to title it properly. Exposing demons' attack on your life. Things of that nature, you know what I mean? Be very specific. Because they have ways of misleading people. So, energy siphons, energy vampires, interesting terminology. Energy vampires. Vampire is like a bloodsucker, like something that's living off of you. And what's vampiric about a demon, in other words, how it feeds off of you, is its ability to transmute energy. Why? Demons don't have life. They've no right to life. And they're trying to remove the impression of the right to life in human beings. That's why pro-abortion came in, because it implies no right to life. Why? Because if you vote for the removal of the right to life of the baby in the womb, you've voted for the removal of your own. Because you're held to the standards you permit. But the devil has these ways of getting something done in one move. Compound strikes. He's an intelligent cosmic entity. Petty and pathetic, yes, but intelligent. So they're a deadly host for their intelligence, but also for their patheticness, because they'll do anything. Nothing is too low for them. They'll do it. They're crap. So, I mean, when you think about Jesus Christ's encounter, when you think about Jesus Christ's encounter with demons. Hi, Hannah. What is it that demons requested of Jesus Christ? They said a demon was in a man, and that man was asked by God to speak. The demon in the man was asked to speak, and the demon spoke. But what did he say? He said, "We are legion, for we are many." So we're talking about one man had an entire legion of demons inside of him. A legion of them. So one man had a legion of demons. So we're talking about one human body has the ability to contain thousands of people. That completely changes most people's paradigm and worldview. Rihanna sings about her umbrella. Now, I don't know why Rihanna would be so fascinated about her umbrella that she'd want to write a song about it, do you? So there's obviously some kind of a meaning. But what's the meaning? Well, understand that the earth is under the firmament. What's a firmament? But an upside down bowl, an umbrella. Now, if Satan is contained by the firmament, his complex is shaped as an umbrella. Why? Because he's trying to keep out the light of God. Under my umbrella, Ella, Ella, eh, eh, eh. Right? So the point is that the umbrella is the spiritual complex of the devil under the firmament of God, contained by it, because they can't ascend. They've reached the limits of the firmament, but can't ascend past it. And so that's what's meant by Satan's umbrella, because it's not Rihanna's umbrella. The devil is the spirit operating the children of disobedience. So there's a complex of demons up there. Satellites orbiting. You getting the picture? So these technological depictions are not physical realities. There are no satellites up there. There's no satellites up there. How do you ring America then? Tell me that. Big, vast, big coils and conduits under the sea. Massive big things. Massive big cables. Huge things. I don't know how big, but massive. Under the ocean, all the way across the sea. How would they do it? They do it. They probably lay them by ship, by boat. Just lay them out. Connect one to the other, and then maybe they relay. I don't know. Could be one ship waiting out in the middle of the ocean and they join them and keep laying them, It's possible. They could just put loads of ships across the water and then lay them as they go. I don't know how they do it. I must look into it. Maybe Google it. But satellites in the sky, all these depictions, like travel to outer space. The Earth is flat under a firmament. It's said in Genesis. Exactly, Alvin. No such thing as a space shuttle to space. But there is a message in that, isn't there? A space shuttle to space. Outer space. Depart from me into outer darkness. All depictions of space are that it is dark, but that there are stars out there. Stars. Angels. Angels are stars, metaphorically or prophetically spoken. When God talks about angels in Revelation, he calls them stars. So there are fallen angels in the outer darkness because they were thrown out from the heaven of God. You getting the point now? So even though the space shuttle to space is not a physical reality, it is a spiritual one. The space shuttle is the complex of the devil that's designed to contain spirits, to contain people, to bring them out to destruction or to outer spaces, spiritual outer darkness. So remember that your enemy is intelligent. So whenever they speak something, it's a compound weapon. They don't waste words, and they don't waste opportunity to maximize the impact of their strike. So what's the compound nature of saying that there's a space shuttle to outer space? It creates in the child mind a dream or an aspiration, an ambition to become an astronaut, space traveller. And if the child is talking about travelling to outer space, that's talking about, spiritually at least, departing from the universe of God. And they try to make that in the mind of the child something to be aspired to. So do you see how it's a compound weapon? They try to inspire the child to depart from God. At least conceptually. Do you see how he works? The devil is planting these seeds, these concepts, these principles, these ideas and philosophies in your mind, even though they're not directly representing that which he intends them to later on. They're still there principally and functionally in your mind. The mechanism of them is integrated. So yes, the shuttle to outer space doesn't physically exist, but it does spiritually exist. So they state these as physical realities, which means that that's the corrupting factor. It's a lie, how they have presented it. Remember I was talking about a corrupting factor earlier on? So that's the corrupting factor. The corrupting factor is that it's a physical reality. That's the lie. If they were to say, no, this is just a concept, it's a principle talking about spiritual things, that wouldn't be a lie. So it wouldn't have the power of a lie. And that would be failing to maximize the impact of the weapon. So just dismissing it out of hand and saying, no, there's no such thing as a space shuttle to space, which is right, you're not wrong in doing that, doesn't fully address the issue or understand what the devil is intending to do by that statement. So that's why, the Well, can we apply that to every lie that the devil has told about the nature of the earth? I would say most. Like if you take, for example, evolution. Evolution speaks of angels that were in heaven no longer being in heaven. It talks about demons, terrible lizards, dinosaurs evolving into birds. Terrible lizards, the demons. Terrible in nature, reptilious in instinct. And base. So if these things are happening or these things are occurring spiritually, like a demon losing its physical body, becoming a cosmic entity, a ghost, or a bird, one that has spiritual flight, a bird, one who has spiritual flight. So a dinosaur, a terrible lizard, a giant, terrible giant, reptilious being, a giant of old. You see the point? Giant, reptilious in nature, and terrible in nature. The men of renown, the great men of renown, the giants of old. There were giants in the world in those days. So these are the terrible lizards. So evolution, again, it's a spiritual thing. It's demons talking about themselves. That's what the false representations of our physical reality are. It's demons promoting themselves and their spiritual reality. The lie is that it's our physical reality, but that makes it more relatable to us. It makes it more tactile and tangible. It makes it something that we can more readily integrate into our thinking. So it leaves us more susceptible to trip over it in our philosophies, thoughts, and worldviews. Because things that are physical are also spiritual. So they present them as physical, which means that they're a lie, which gives them the potency of a lie and the transmuting factor of a lie, to take your energy and turn it into something else by way of a lie. So these are compound weapons, but you have to understand what they are. So did dinosaurs exist? I don't believe they existed as science says they existed, no. I think dinosaurs are referring to the giants of old, dying and taking on crow-like features, bird-like features. They like, dead, flat, linear, sharp movements, functional, but rather sort of lacking a flow of movement, quite staccato in their movements, And that's what demons sort of do. They take on that sort of appearance because they're dead and death. So, dinosaurs dying. They died. How did they die and evolve into birds? So, destroyed in a great calamity, the flood of Noah. In a great meteorological impact. A great spiritual weapon sent against the earth. So that destroyed the dinosaurs, destroyed the giants, the reptilious, terrible, lizard-like giants of old. Died, became birds, demons, spiritual entities, cosmic powers, with bird-like features and a limited spiritual flight. Do you see how it works? So the theory of evolution again speaks to demons and their history, because they're self-promoters. But they can't just come out and say, we're demons, worship us. That's not how it works. You can't win hearts that way. So they have to try and win the minds and hearts of people before they introduce themselves, because they're not very likable. You see the point? So that's why they use human beings as their front of house, because human beings are much more likable. They use them like puppets. So These fourth dimensional cosmic entities are presenting false physical realities to us three-dimensional human beings so that we will seek them and believe their lies as our physical reality, thereby adopting their spiritual reality and integrating it into our thinking. It's clever. So, but it's all that's available to them, so it's not super clever. You know what I mean? It's the only thing they can do, actually, to fight. So, globe Earth. Well, where does globe Earth fit into that sort of mechanism? And I don't want to spend too much time on this either. Well, globe Earth, remember, false physical realities communicating a spiritual reality for demons. Globe Earth factors the firmament, the earth, and the hell beneath. There's a globe. So spiritually speaking, to demons, the universe is a globe. The world is a globe because there's the surface of the earth, there's the sky under the firmament, the surface of the earth, the open heavens, the sky, the earth, the hell beneath. That's a globe. It's a globular structure. Spherical. So they speak to their own spiritual reality and they present it as a physical one. That's the trick. If you love and believe a lie. And they're siphoning the energies of men here, men committing themselves to believing what they've lied about as physical realities. And they're also teaching as well their spiritual reality whilst they lie about the physical one. These are energy siphoning mechanisms and grooming preparatory works in instilling in the hearts and minds of men a desire to venture into certain environments which are not the ones that God would have them venture into. Do you see how it works now? So the theory of evolution. Cobus, do you keep getting logged off this video or something? I'm just noticing that the viewers go down and come back up again. Are you getting logged out and having to log back in or something? Hopefully there's no interference with my videos going on. So you can see how these energy tricks, these philosophical tricks, these mechanisms of deception are also it wasn't starting at the start of the video or happening at the start of the video. Interesting how it's happening now, isn't it? But these mechanisms are they're by design, you know. They're cleverly sort of orchestrated lies. There have been a couple of drops. So, yeah, it's just a matter of understanding why those mechanisms are in place, and then, of course, not integrating them into your perception of the universe or your worldview because they're lies, but also understanding what they're actually designed to do, so that you can. Because people say, why would anybody lie about that? Well, now you know. They lie because lies create a dark environment. And demons need dark environments to dwell in. You understand now? So because demons don't have any energy life force of their own, they siphon energy from human beings. They have these energy siphoning devices which they try to suck energy from humanity. so they don't starve and shrivel up and become weak. So human beings are their little tugboats pulling them around the vast ocean. It's quite pathetic. So obviously they want more tugboats to get more speed. And that's all they want to do. See men fail, see men destroyed. So I've given you lots of information in this video. Hopefully it's helped you. Be careful what you believe, be careful what you give your energy to, and always reset your breathing. Nose breathe in, stomach out, be in control of your energy. This is what Jesus says when he says, be ye self-controlled. Blessings, I love you in Jesus Christ the righteous. Be blessed. Good night.